"Is everything all right, Akumar?" he asked gently. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to share her feelings. "Sachi, I went to my friend's wedding yesterday. It was so luxurious, and everyone there was so wealthy. I couldn't help but feel a bit jealous and worried about what my friends will think of our engagement." Sachi took her hand and looked into her eyes. "Akumar, I may not have much, but I promise to give you all the love and support I have. Our journey may be different, but it's our own special story. I believe in us, and I hope you do too." A few days later, Akumar found herself staring at Michael's business card again. She hesitated, but curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to call him. The phone rang twice before Michael answered. "Hello, this is Michael," he said. "Hi, Michael, this is Akumar. We met at the wedding." She introduced herself nervously. "Akumar, I'm so glad you called. How about you come by my office? I'd love to chat more," Michael responded warmly. Akumar agreed and set a time to visit his office. When she arrived, she was caught up in the beauty of the place. The luxurious decor, elegant furniture, and overall ambiance were unlike anything she had seen before. Michael greeted her with a smile and led her to a comfortable chair. "Welcome, Akumar. It's great to see you again," he said, offering her a drink. "Thank you, Michael. Your office is beautiful," she replied, still taking in the surroundings. Michael smiled. "I'm glad you like it. So, tell me, are you in a relationship?" Akumar hesitated for a moment, but then, unsure why, she said, "No, I'm not." Michael's eyes lit up. "You know, your beauty really caught my eye at the wedding. There's something very special about you." Akumar felt flattered and a bit overwhelmed. "Thank you, Michael. That's very kind of you." Michael leaned in slightly. "I'd love to get to know you better, Akumar. How about dinner sometime?" Akumar's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She remembered Sachi and all the sacrifices he had made for her, but the allure of Michael's world was tempting. "Let me think about it," she said softly. As she left Michael's office, Akumar couldn't shake the feeling of confusion and guilt. The contrast between Sachi's simple, hard-working life and Michael's luxurious, easygoing world was stark. That evening, Sachi noticed Akumar seemed distant. "Is everything okay, Akumar?" he asked gently. She nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She realized she had a decision to make: follow the tempting path of wealth and luxury, or stay true to the man who had stood by her through thick and thin. The next day, she picked up Michael's card and called him. "Hello, Michael, this is Akumar," she said. "Akumar, have you thought about my offer?" Michael asked, hopeful. "Yes, Michael," Akumar replied, her voice steady. "I agree to your proposal." The decision weighed heavily on her heart, but she was drawn to the promise of a more comfortable life. She returned home, feeling a mixture of excitement and guilt. The next evening, Sachi came home with a bright smile on his face. "Akumar," he said, holding out a small box. "I've managed to buy the engagement ring for our traditional wedding." Akumar's heart sank. She knew she had to tell him the truth. "Sachi, please, don't worry about the marriage right now," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I need some time to think about it. Marriage is a long journey, and I'm not sure if I'm ready." Sachi was shocked, his face falling. "Why, Akumar? Why have you suddenly changed your mind?" Akumar struggled to find the right words. I've been thinking a lot. I need some time to figure things out," she said, avoiding his eyes. Sachi's eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "But Akumar, we've been planning this together. What happened?" Tears welled up in Akumar's eyes. She felt the weight of her decision crushing her. "I'm sorry, Sachi. I just need some time." Sachi stood there, the small box still in his hand, feeling as if his world was crumbling. If that's what you need, Akumar, he said quietly, I'll give you the time you need. But please, remember everything we've been through together. Akumar nodded, tears streaming down her face as she watched Sachi walk away. His shoulders slumped in defeat. She felt torn between her old life filled with love and sacrifice, and the new path she had chosen, lured by the promise of wealth and comfort. That night, as she lay in bed, Akumar couldn't shake the feeling that she had made a terrible mistake. Sachi, heartbroken and confused, went to see Asabea, Akumar's mother. He shared the shocking news with her, and Asabea was deeply troubled. How could this happen? Asabea asked, her voice filled with concern. Later that evening, Asabea called Akumar into the house. Akumar, why are you treating Sachi this way? She asked sternly. Mommy, Akumar began, trying to steady her voice. You know marriage is a long journey, and I have to be careful. I can't just marry Sachi because he has helped me. I've met someone else, and I love him. Asabea was shocked and disappointed. Akumar, Sachi has been there for us through everything. He loves you deeply, and you just want to leave him because someone else seems better? I will never accept any man in this house, no matter how rich, if it means hurting Sachi. But Akumar was resolute. I'm sorry, Mommy, but I have to follow my heart. Seeing her daughter's determination, Asabea felt both anger and sadness. If you choose to follow this path, you are not welcome here anymore, she said firmly. I cannot support a decision that betrays the one who has sacrificed so much for us. With a heavy heart, Asabea sacked Akumar from the house. Despite her mother's strong disapproval and the pain it caused, Akumar chose not to listen. She left her mother's home, seeking the new life she believed awaited her with Michael. Asabea watched her daughter leave, tears streaming down her face. She prayed that Akumar would realize her mistake before it was too late. Sachi, too, struggled with the pain of Akumar's decision. He threw himself into his work, trying to find solace in the routine of driving his taxi. Yet, the memories of their time together and the dreams they had shared haunted him. Gradually, Sachi was losing weight and losing his concentration. His heart was filled with sadness and sorrow, and he never expected this sad outcome. One day, he took a passenger to a restaurant, and as soon as he arrived, he saw Akumar alighting from Michael's car with Michael. Michael held her waist as they both entered the restaurant. Sachi started sweating and panting, overwhelmed by the sight. He didn't confront them, but he quickly called his friend Seth. Seth, please come and take me home, he managed to say. Seth arrived quickly and saw the scene. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he knew Sachi was in serious trouble. He rushed Sachi to the hospital, fearing for his friend's life. Sachi was broken-hearted and weak, struggling to hold on. After he was discharged, Seth spoke to him sternly. I warned you about this girl, Sachi. I told you it was risky, but you saw me as an enemy. Now, look at you. You don't even own a car, and you used your savings to finance her nursing training. Look at your end. Sachi listened, the words hitting him hard. He felt the full weight of his decisions and the heartbreak he had endured. Tears filled his eyes as he realized how much he had lost. I loved her, Seth. I believed in her, Sachi said weakly, his voice breaking. Seth sighed, seeing his friend's pain. I know, Sachi, but you need to take care of yourself now. Focus on getting better and finding your strength again. Sachi nodded slowly, knowing Seth was right. He had to find a way to heal and move forward, despite the deep wounds left by Akumar's betrayal. He went to Akumar's mother, Asabea, to ask about her. Asabea thought Akumar had visited Sachi, so she said, Akumar left home yesterday. I thought she was coming to see you." Sachi felt a pang of worry, but Asabiya looked ashamed, knowing what her daughter had done. The next day, Akumar arrived home with Michael, her new boyfriend. Asabiya didn't welcome them. Michael handed her a gift, but she refused it and left them to go to her room. Akumar was shocked by her mother's behavior. People in the town started mocking Sachi, and he was heartbroken. He couldn't drive properly because he had lost focus. Sometimes he would park the car at home and not go to work, staying indoors and crying. His sales plummeted, and one day, the car owner complained about his performance. "Sachi, I know your story, but you need to be careful. You have to overcome this broken heart," the car owner advised. A few days later, the heartbreak affected Sachi even more. He lost focus while driving, which led to an accident. He didn't die, but the car was badly damaged. The car owner seized the car and sacked Sachi, leaving him helpless. His mental state deteriorated, and he became unstable. One day, as Sachi was walking down the street, he saw Akumar and Michael at a boutique. Summoning his courage, he confronted them. "Akumar, Michael, we need to talk," he said, his voice shaky. Akumar turned to him, her face a mix of surprise and anger. "Sachi, stop following us! It's over between us!" she shouted. Sachi's heart shattered further. "How could you do this to me, Akumar? After everything we've been through?" he asked, tears welling up in his eyes. Michael stepped forward, looking annoyed. "Leave us alone, Sachi. She's with me now." Sachi looked at Akumar one last time, hoping for a sign of the love they once shared. But her cold stare told him everything he needed to know. Defeated, he turned and walked away, feeling more lost than ever. Days turned into weeks, and Sachi's life continued to spiral. He had no job, no car, and his spirit was broken. He wandered the streets aimlessly, the weight of his heartbreak consuming him. One day Sachi gathered his courage and decided to visit Akumar at the hospital where she worked. He needed closure and felt he had to confront her one last time. When he saw her, his heart ached with all the memories and pain. "Akumar!" he called out, his voice trembling. She turned, surprised to see him. "Sachi, what are you doing here?" she asked, a hint of annoyance in her tone. Sachi took a deep breath and went on his knees. "Akumar, you are here because of me, and I am in this situation because of you. We have never had sex because you told me you wanted to wait until marriage. I respected your wishes and spent my money to make your future better, hoping we could marry and move on in life. But after everything, you abandoned me." Akumar looked around nervously, aware of the people watching them. "Sachi, get up. This is not the place for this," she whispered harshly. Sachi ignored her and continued, his voice filled with emotion. "Remember this. As you see me today, you will never see me again. Your life will never be the same if I'm truly the man you needed in life. You will sleep with a man more desperate and worthless than me. Mark my words." Akumar's eyes widened, but she quickly masked her shock with indifference. "Sachi, stop making threats. This won't change anything." Sachi stood up slowly, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and determination. "I hope you realize what you've done, Akumar. Goodbye." 1 month later, feeling desperate and consumed by his heartbreak, Sachi decided to seek help from a traditional fetish priest. He traveled to a remote village and explained to the priest what Akumar had done to him, how she had betrayed and abandoned him for another man. The fetish priest listened carefully and then instructed Sachi to speak his wishes into a mystical calabash. "Speak whatever you want to happen to the woman," the priest said. Sachi, his heart filled with pain and anger, spoke into the calabash. The priest then performed the necessary rituals, and Sachi left, feeling a strange mix of relief and guilt. 3 months later, in broad daylight at the Akumar station, Akumar was on her way home from work. Suddenly, she came face to face with a madman. He was drooling, dirty, and smelling terrible, wearing tattered clothes and almost naked. As Akumar tried to move to the left, the madman mirrored her movements. She turned right, and he did the same. Fear gripped her heart. This was a real, terrifying moment that sent chills down her spine. The madman lunged at her, forcing her to the ground. He held her tightly, his grip strong and unyielding. Akumar screamed, struggling to break free, but the madman's strength was overwhelming. Several people nearby noticed the commotion and rushed to help. Despite their efforts, they couldn't pull the madman off Akumar. In a horrifying turn of events, the madman forced himself on Akumar, raping her publicly. By the time the men managed to save her, it was too late. Everyone saw her nakedness and the terrible humiliation she endured. The scene was both shocking and heartbreaking, leaving everyone in disbelief. The authorities arrived and restrained the madman, but the damage was done. Akumar was left traumatized, her clothes torn and her dignity shattered. She was helped to her feet by the kind strangers, but the emotional scars were deep. News of the incident spread quickly through Akumar. The community was abuzz with whispers, and many believed that this tragic event was a consequence of her betrayal of Sachi. The incident left Akumar deeply shaken and filled with profound regret. The situation affected Akumar deeply. Everywhere she went, people pointed fingers at her, calling her the lady who was raped by a madman. The community's mocking and whispers were relentless. Even at work, groups of people would gather to talk or whisper about her. The shame was too much for her to bear. Michael, upon hearing the news, distanced himself completely. He didn't contact Akumar or answer her calls. Feeling abandoned and humiliated, Akumar's desperation grew. She became more and more withdrawn, and her mental state deteriorated rapidly. 2 days later, her whereabouts became unknown. Concerned, her family and friends decided to check on her. They forced her door open and found her hanging from a rope. She had taken her own life. Next to her, they found a letter. In it, Akumar wrote a heartfelt apology to Sachi and her mother. She expressed her deep remorse for her actions and the pain she had caused. She explained that the shame and humiliation were too overwhelming for her to continue living. "Dear Sachi and Mama, I am so sorry for all the pain and heartache I have caused. I realize now that my decisions have brought nothing but suffering to those who loved me most. The shame and mockery I face every day are unbearable, and I see no way out. I cannot live with the burden of my mistakes any longer. Sachi, you were always there for me, and I betrayed your trust. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Mama, please forgive your daughter for all the sorrow I have brought into our lives. I wish I had been stronger, but I'm too broken to continue. Please remember me not for my mistakes, but for the good times we shared. I hope you can both find peace and move forward. I am truly sorry. With all my love, Akumar." The news of Akumar's death sent waves of grief through the community. Those who had mocked and judged her were now silent, reflecting on the tragic outcome of their cruelty. Upon hearing the tragic news of Akumar's death, Sachi was consumed with regret. He realized that his actions, driven by anger and heartbreak, had contributed to her despair. He couldn't forgive himself for not forgiving her, for letting his anger lead to such devastating consequences. Sachi reflected deeply on the lessons from this heart-wrenching experience. Sometimes when someone offends us, it's crucial to try our best to forgive. Acting out of anger often leads to decisions that worsen the situation rather than making it better. Our hearts, like boiling water, are too hot to handle when angered. Just as boiling water cannot be controlled or touched until it cools down, so too must we let our hearts cool before making decisions. We must always remember those who helped us climb the ladder of life, even when we reach the top. Forgetting those who once aided us can lead to ingratitude and betrayal, which only brings sorrow and regret. It's important to cherish and honor the people who have been there for us. I wish you never fall into the hands of people who are ungrateful and treacherous. Always strive to forgive and remember the kindness shown to you. Remember, 90% of the people who watch our videos don't subscribe, so please subscribe to Anansi Web of Tales for more captivating stories and share where you're watching from.